What if I told you that everything you think you know about building wealth and financial freedom is fundamentally wrong? The real battle for your money isn't in the stock market or your bank account. It's waged right here in your own mind. Money isn't just numbers on a screen or a means to survive. It's a hidden psychological power. It shapes our lives in ways far deeper than we often realize. Yet very few truly understand this invisible force that drives every financial decision we make. We're often taught that financial success comes down to mastering savings, investments, or budgeting, but the truth is far more complex. Your entire relationship with money, how you earn it, spend it, and manage it, isn't just governed by logic. It's profoundly influenced by your emotions, your habits, your past experiences, and even your daily mindset. Consider this. Two people earn the exact same salary. One quietly builds incredible wealth, while the other drowns in debt. What's the real difference between them? It's not just about math, it's about behavior. And that behavior is driven by deep-seated psychology. Many believe financial intelligence simply means knowing what to do. But here's the critical insight. Knowing what to do and actually being able to do it are two completely different things. These powerful emotions can unconsciously hijack your financial decisions. In his groundbreaking book, The Psychology of Money, Morgan Housel doesn't offer typical financial advice. Instead, he takes you on an unforgettable journey. This video will fundamentally change how you see money, offering psychological tools to reorganize your financial life, build a healthy, stable relationship with wealth, and stay in the game for the long term. Chapter 1: Sufficiency. At a lavish party hosted by a billionaire on Shelter Island, the novelist Kurt Vonnegut leaned over to his friend Joseph Heller, author of Catch-22. Vonnegut remarked, "Our host here, the head of Vanguard, made more money in one day than you've earned from your novel in your entire life." Heller smiled, a confident glint in his eye, and replied, "Yes, but he will never have what I have, enough." Heller's simple statement holds a profound truth. Sufficiency, that often absent concept in a world that knows no satiety, is a crucial missing element, even among the wealthy and powerful. Many of us simply don't know when to stop, when to say, "I have enough." Yet, knowing when you have enough is the ultimate key to happiness and peace of mind. The author presents a chilling, real-world example that embodies the dire consequences of lacking this concept. It's the story of a man who was once one of the richest businessmen in the world, Rajat Gupta. In a moment of greed, he lost absolutely everything. Rajat, an orphan who grew up in the poor neighborhoods of Kolkata, India, initially owned nothing. Yet, through sheer determination, he climbed his way to the very top, becoming the CEO of McKinsey, one of the largest global consulting firms, by age 50. After his retirement in 2007, prestigious opportunities poured in. High-level positions at the United Nations and the World Economic Forum, and seats on the boards of 5 major corporations. by 2008, his net worth had soared to $100 million. Think about that. He could earn about $600, but here's the shocking part. It wasn't enough for him. Even with hundreds of millions, he still dreamed of becoming a billionaire, of joining that exclusive elite. He relentlessly pursued more influence and wealth, even joining the board of Goldman Sachs. In 2008, as the financial crisis swept through the markets, the bank found itself at the heart of the storm. At that critical moment, Warren Buffett decided to inject billions of dollars to rescue the bank. Goldman Sachs' stock was expected to skyrocket immediately upon the announcement. As a board member, Rajat Gupta knew about this investment before it was publicly announced. Just 16 seconds after receiving news of the anticipated deal from the Goldman Sachs board, Rajat Gupta hung up the phone. Immediately after, he called his friend, Raj Rajaratnam, the manager of the Galleon Group hedge fund. Only a few hours later, Warren Buffett's investment in the bank was officially announced. As soon as the news broke, the stock price jumped sharply, bringing Raj Rajaratnam immediate profits exceeding $1 million within hours. Gupta's total profits from the transaction reached $17 million. Although he didn't need this money, he risked everything for it. Perhaps the money was tempting, but the case was far too obvious for the Securities and Exchange Commission to overlook. Both Rajat and Rajaratnam were convicted of insider trading and illegal use of confidential information. The result? Prison, confiscation of wealth, reputation collapse, and an irreparably lost career. Why did Rajat need an additional $17 million when he already had $100 million? He had everything: wealth, influence, fame, and freedom. Nevertheless, it becomes truly dangerous when ambition turns into irresistible avarice. The craving for more money, more power, more status, more fame, becomes stronger than any feeling of contentment. The closer he got to his goal, the further it seemed to move away. This constant feeling of being behind led him to seek compensation through more risk-taking. Social comparisons always made him feel that someone else had more, completely convincing him that he must acquire more. No matter how much you own, if you keep chasing more without defining what is enough for yourself, you risk losing everything. The author puts it perfectly. The hardest financial skill is to stop moving the goalpost when you've achieved what you actually need. We can learn 3 crucial lessons from Rajat Gupta's. The more our profits increase, the higher our expectations rise. The more we advance at work, the higher our ambitions soar. This is natural, but it's dangerous, because ambition can sometimes grow faster than contentment. Instead of being happy with what we've achieved, we feel we're still behind. Imagine running towards a goal, but the closer you get, the further it moves away. You'll feel like you're achieving nothing. This is precisely where risk-taking begins. A crazy investment, a hasty career decision, or even unethical behavior. As the author says, modern capitalism is brilliant at two things: generating wealth and cultivating greed. This deceptive balance is what makes stopping at the right time a real challenge. Second, social comparison is an endless battle. Imagine a football player earning $500,000 a year. He might seem rich, but if we compare his income to Mike Trout's $430 million contract, he might seem relatively poor. Or a Vanguard fund manager earning $36 million a year. That might seem amazing. But compared to the top 10 Vanguard fund managers, whose income is no less than $340 million a year, that number looks tiny. Even those earning $340 million might feel inferior when compared to the top 5, whose income reaches $770 million. And what about comparing those 5 to Warren Buffett, whose wealth increased by $3.5 billion in a single year? What if Buffett compared himself to Jeff Bezos, whose wealth in the same year was estimated at $24 billion? There is no limit to these comparisons. The result is a constant feeling of inadequacy, no matter how rich or successful you are. The author tells a story about his friend who asked a Las Vegas blackjack dealer, "The only way to win in a casino is to leave as soon as you enter." This is exactly what happens when you try to catch up with others' wealth. Leaving is the only victory. Third, some things are not worth risking, no matter the return. Rajat Gupta, after being released from prison, said in an interview, "One should not be too attached to one's reputation or achievements, because in the end, they are not that important." The author strongly rejects this idea. He says, "This is the worst lesson a person can learn, because reputation is important. Freedom is priceless. Family, friends, peace of mind, independence, all these things cannot be valued by the world's wealth. The danger is when we risk all that just to gain more money, fame, or control." Rajat's story illustrates that the real danger isn't having ambition, nor is it striving for success. It's about setting a limit to your ambition. Being rich is good, but if you don't have a concept of sufficiency, nothing will ever be enough, no matter how much you have. Contentment doesn't mean stopping your ambition. It means knowing when to stop. It means knowing when to say, "I have achieved my goal, and this is enough for me." Chapter 2. The secret to success is what you don't see. In 1936, Heinz Berggruen fled Nazi Germany and settled in America, where he studied literature at the University of California, Berkeley. In his youth, Berggruen showed no distinctive signs of becoming an exceptional person. But by the 1990s, he had become one of the greatest art dealers in the world. In 2000, Berggruen sold part of his amazing art collection, which included works by giants like Picasso, Braque, and Matisse, to the German government for a staggering $1 billion. How could one person manage to collect all these rare artistic masterpieces? You might attribute Berggrun's success to skill or perhaps incredible luck. But there's a third explanation, provided by an investment research firm called Horizon Research. Berggruen bought huge quantities of artwork, even though most of it was initially of little value. But he held onto them for years, and eventually, a few pieces later emerged and became exceptionally valuable. These few works were enough to cover all his other investments, and even generated enormous profits. In other words, 99% of the works Berggruen bought were almost worthless, but the remaining 1%, like the Picasso pieces, were enough on their own. Berggruen didn't need to be right all the time. It was enough for him to be right just once. The author introduces a concept called the long tail, which means that a small number of rare events produces the bulk of the results. For example, when Amazon launched the Fire Phone in 2014, it could have become a dominant smartphone, potentially doubling Amazon's stock price. But the phone was a spectacular failure. Just a few years after its launch, CEO Jeff Bezos had to cancel the project, taking a loss of $170 million. But Bezos was completely unfazed. In an interview after the Fire Phone's failure, instead of apologizing to shareholders, Jeff Bezos boldly declared, "If you think this is a big failure, we are currently working on much bigger failures. I'm not kidding. Some of them will make the Fire Phone look like a tiny mistake." Bezos made hundreds of small investments in Amazon. One of those it started as a small side project, and now it generates over 60% of Amazon's revenue. Amazon Prime is an outlier investment. One single investment overwhelmingly outperformed all others and compensated for several failed investments, like the Fire Phone. Bezos understands that it's normal to make mistakes and fail with most products, as long as the process eventually leads to the 1% of rare products that change everything. In other words, for every successful product like Amazon Prime, there are many that simply failed. Rare events are often unexpected, hidden from our eyes, because we only see the final successful outcome. We don't see all the failures that came before it, the failures that contributed to reaching it. It's impossible to know which investment will yield huge returns and which won't succeed. So it's wise to diversify your investments and not risk putting all your money into a single. Once you realize that rare events drive everything in the world of business, investment, and money, you'll understand that many things can fail or collapse, and that's completely normal. If you're an investor or a businessman, don't despair over failure. Don't overanalyze every loss. Focus on expanding your investment scope. Be patient and wait for the big success. You don't have to achieve impressive results every time. It's enough to hit the mark at the right time, even if it's just once. Chapter 3: The Power of Compounding Effect. Have you ever wondered why ice ages happened? This fascinating phenomenon greatly resembles how the compounding effect works in investments, where money grows gradually over time. By the 18th century, scientists agree our planet didn't go through just one ice age. It witnessed 5, and we can now accurately estimate their dates. But what does it take to cover the entire world with ice, then melt it, then cover it again? This pattern repeated 5 times. But why did ice ages happen in the first place? There are several theories. One says tectonic activities in mountain ranges caused climate changes. Another assumes that ice ages are Earth's natural state, only broken by volcanic eruptions. But these theories explain only one ice age, not all 5. In the early 20th century, the Serbian scientist Milutin Milankovic studied Earth's position within the solar system. He concluded that the gravitational forces of the Sun and Moon affect Earth's axis. He noticed that Earth sometimes tilts more than usual, causing it to receive more solar radiation than normal. Changes in the Earth's hemisphere led to severe cooling, which covered the planet with thick layers of ice. The Russian meteorologist Vladimir Kopin added to this theory, noting that the abnormal tilt caused summers to be colder than usual. It wasn't warm enough to melt the accumulated ice, allowing it to remain through winter, year after year. Over time, layers of ice accumulated, eventually covering the entire Earth, leading to an ice age. In a similar way, the concept of compounding in finance refers to the gradual increase of money. Imagine you start saving 10% of your annual salary in an investment fund with an annual return of 10%. The next year, you'll get 10% of your salary, plus you'll earn 10% interest on that amount. If you continue this into the following year, adding 10% of your salary each year, and you get 10% interest annually, and you don't withdraw this money for 10 years, you could become a millionaire. Just as ice ages slowly accumulated through the buildup of ice, the power of compounding gradually builds wealth. Did you know Warren Buffett started investing when he was just 10 years old? He never withdrew the interest he earned. Instead, he let it compound. By age 70, he had accumulated $84 billion, a result of his discipline and 8 decades of compounding. You'll discover that most of his $84 billion fortune came after his 50th birthday. This is the staggering power of compounding. Consider this equation. When you add the number 8 to itself 8 times, you get 64. But what happens when you multiply 8 by itself 9 times? The result is 134,000. This is like an investment that lasted for over 25 years. This is exactly what compounding is, in its simplest form. The key to successful investing isn't seeking the highest returns. It's about achieving good returns that can be repeated over a long period. Chapter 4: Getting Rich versus Staying Rich. There are many ways to get rich, but few people talk about the secret to keeping that money. Acquiring money is one thing. Keeping it is another thing entirely. Jesse Livermore was one of the greatest stock market traders of his era. Born in 1877, he became a professional trader at a time when most people hadn't even heard of stock trading. By 1929, Jesse had earned $100 million. But in that same year, the stock market crashed catastrophically, leading to the Great Depression, later dubbed Black Monday. It was a time when news was filled with stories of Wall Street traders committing suicide. On that difficult day, panic crept into his wife Dorothy's heart. She stood with her 2 children, waiting for Jesse to return home, fearing he might have lost everything. When Jesse arrived, he was in shock. But not because he'd lost all his money. Instead, he told his wife, "I bet that the stock market would collapse," and the predictions came true precisely. We are rich in every sense of the word, and we can do whatever we please. While everyone was betting on stock prices rising, Jesse predicted they would collapse. He won a huge bet, earning $3 billion that day alone. Jesse became one of the most famous men in the world during one of the worst days in stock market history. But here's the twist. Jesse Livermore's story didn't end there. After the 1929 crisis, he became overly confident. He felt invincible. He continued to bet huge sums, thinking he would always win. By 1933, just 4 years later, he had lost his entire fortune. A few days after his loss, he was later found dead, having ended his own life. He simply couldn't bear the loss of his wealth. The author Morgan Housel says of Livermore, "He was a genius at making wealth, but he failed at keeping it." To imagine the scale of his fortune. If you earned $3 billion like Jesse and decided to spend $100,000 daily, you would need over 82 years to spend it all. Yet all that wealth was gone in just 4 years. Acquiring wealth and maintaining richness are 2 completely different skills. According to the author, the first requires risk-taking, an integral part of earning money, while the second demands humility and prudence. Humility means not dwelling on your past successes and accepting that some of what you achieved was due to luck, and that cannot be replicated. Prudence, on the other hand, means always being cautious of losing what you've built as quickly as you gained it, reminding you of the importance of not being reckless when taking risks. The author says, if we had to summarize financial success in one word, it would be survival. That is, the ability to continue for a long time without withdrawing or giving up. First, it's about avoiding excessive risk, which can lead to sudden and significant losses that negatively affect you. Second, it's the compounding effect, whose results only begin to appear after being given enough time to grow. Just like an oak tree, after a year of planting, you might not notice any significant progress. But after 10 years, the difference will be substantial. And after 20 years, the difference will be extraordinary. To maintain this exceptional financial growth, you must remain resilient against the sudden fluctuations everyone experiences. To build a survival mindset, the author recommends 3 principles that help you face fluctuations and achieve long-term success. First, immunize yourself financially against breaking. Don't focus all your attention on achieving huge profits, especially during crises. Some opportunities might seem tempting, with high returns, but they often come loaded with severe risks. True financial intelligence lies in protecting against losses before pursuing profits. Second, expect the unexpected. Not everything planned happens exactly as in charts and models, so be sure to have a margin of safety. This protects you when unexpected fluctuations occur in life, the economy, or politics. This reserve gives you enough flexibility to stay on track and achieve positive results in the long run. Third, be optimistic and skeptical at the same time. Be optimistic about your long-term success, but at the same time, be skeptical that the path to this success will be free of obstacles. Challenges, surprises, and difficulties will always remain part of the journey. Optimism gives you the motivation to continue, but caution and skepticism in the short term are what keep you in the game long enough to reap the rewards of your long-term optimism. Chapter 5. The difference between richness and wealth. The author wrote a powerful letter to his son after graduation. In it, he said, "You might think you want a luxury car, a precious watch, or a huge house. But the truth is, you don't want these things themselves. What you truly want is respect and admiration from others. And you think owning expensive things will grant you that. But let me tell you, this rarely happens, especially from the people whose respect and admiration you truly desire." Morgan learned this lesson himself. He worked as a valet in Los Angeles in the mid-2000s, seeing luxury cars all the time. A person can be rich with an income sufficient to buy a nice car or a large house. But the only way, the author says, that makes you wealthy is not to spend all the money you have. This isn't just a way, it's the definition of wealth itself. Spending money doesn't mean you possess money. True wealth is in the money that wasn't spent. It's the car you didn't buy, the watch you didn't wear, the clothes you decided not to purchase, the luxury ticket you passed up. I want to spend $1 million. This is the opposite of being a millionaire, because spending $1 million means you no longer own it. Even stars and celebrities who earn millions can end up broke. They didn't understand the difference between spending and owning money. The author tells about Rihanna, the famous singer who nearly went bankrupt. She sued her financial advisor. His response was sarcastic but realistic. "Should I have explained to her that if you spend money on things, you will end up with things and not money?" It sounds funny, but it's actually true. Many people don't realize this simple truth. The author Morgan provides an excellent example of wealth using exercise. When you work out, you feel you deserve a rich meal as a reward. But with that meal, you might be erasing all the benefits you gained from the workout. Exercising is like being rich, but refraining from that meal is like being wealthy. It's difficult and requires discipline, but it's what accumulates results in the long run. Ask yourself, do you want to look rich or do you want to be wealthy? Because true wealth isn't in what you own. It's in what you chose not to spend. Here lies its secret and its power. The author Morgan says, building wealth doesn't depend much on your income or investment returns. Instead, it greatly depends on your savings rate. For example, Khalid and Yones are two brothers. They inherited the same amount of money. Let's assume it was $1 million. Khalid, however, was more efficient in handling his money. He spent $100,000 annually. After 10 years, Khalid will have $500,000. Eunice, however, accumulated only $100,000. This is despite being a better investor than Khalid and having higher annual returns. Building wealth is more closely tied to your savings rate. This is more than your income or investment returns. It might be possible to build wealth without a huge income, but it cannot be built without saving. Nevertheless, most people, in their quest for wealth, focus on increasing their income instead of trying to reduce their spending first. This is actually a psychological problem, more than a financial one. Once you meet your basic needs and some luxuries or comforts, you'll direct your spending through your ego. You do this to show people that you have money. You're saving. If you can curb your desires and reduce your anxiety about what others think of you, you'll be able to save more. The author Morgan says that one of the most powerful ways to increase your savings isn't by increasing your income. It's by raising your level of humility. So, the ability to save is completely within your control. This is unlike increasing income, which you often cannot control. You might wonder, what's the point of all this unspent money? The answer is flexibility, the ability to choose, freedom to decide, to be in a position of strength when a great opportunity arises. Saving gives you peace of mind for the future and choices that others don't have. In a world full of people who look rich but are on the verge of bankruptcy, and people who look ordinary but are truly wealthy, you must rethink your way of evaluating financial success and your real goals. Think about starting to save now. But before that, begin by reducing your daily expenses. Chapter 6: How Luck and Risk Play a Role in Your Life and Financial Success. Success and failure in the financial world aren't just about hard work or wise decisions. Instead, luck and risk play a much bigger role than many people believe. You might think you control everything, but in reality, you cannot fully control either of these two factors. In 1968, thanks to the efforts of math teacher Bill Duggal, a teletype Model 30 computer was introduced to Lakeside High School near Seattle. Dougal believed that studying from books alone wasn't enough. He felt students needed to gain real-world experiences. He also saw that computers would be an important part of the future and was determined to equip his students with one. That was an unprecedented event at the time. Among 303 million people in the United States then, only about 300 students had access to a computer within their high school. Most universities didn't even own computers, and if they did, they were modest compared to the machine introduced to that school. There was a 13-year-old boy and his friend who were extremely passionate about this new device. Although the computer wasn't part of the curriculum, they were able to use the machine as they wished. These two boys founded their own company, and today it's valued at over $1 trillion. Can you guess the name of this company? Yes, it's Microsoft. The boy was Bill Gates, and his friend was Paul Allen, the company's co-founder. The author tells this story as an example of luck's influence on Gates's successful journey. Gates was a smart, persistent young man. He had an exceptional vision for computers from an early age. A vision that even senior executives at the time didn't grasp. Yet, the unique opportunity he had allowed him to develop his programming skills before most people even knew what computers were. His luck in being in the right place at the right time played a decisive role in his success. Even Bill Gates himself acknowledged this. He said in a speech to Lakeside School students in 2005, "If there had been no Lakeside School, there would have been no Microsoft." In other words, without his experience at that school, Microsoft would not exist at all. Gates was indeed lucky. The chance to attend a school with a computer in 1968 was a 1 in a million opportunity. But here lies the paradox. Luck can contribute to extraordinary success, while risk can destroy a bright future even before it begins. Kent Evans was in Gates's same class. He was one of his closest friends, and among the lucky ones who worked with Gates in the high school computer lab. And according to Bill's own description, he was the best student in the class. But why don't we hear about Kent Evans in this story? Simply because he didn't become a partner in Microsoft. The reason is he died in a mountaineering accident before graduating from high school. About 36 people die annually in the probability of a high school student dying from such an accident is approximately 1 in a million. This means Kent Evans faced a rare risk with the same probability as the luck Bill Gates experienced. Luck and risk are two sides of the same coin. They are two equally influential forces that operate in opposite directions. Luck elevated Bill to the top. Risk, however, ended Kent's journey halfway. You cannot believe in luck without also believing in risk. Each points to the fact that success or failure doesn't solely depend on individual effort. It also depends on factors beyond our control. If you don't acknowledge these factors, you won't truly understand how the financial world works. In an interview, Nobel laureate economist Robert Shiller was asked, "What do you wish you knew about investing that we don't know yet?" Or are there invisible factors, like risk, that sometimes manifest as bad luck? The media rarely highlights investors who took the right path, made well-thought-out decisions, but lost due to unexpected risk. Instead, the spotlight often falls on those who took reckless decisions, but luck favored them, so they appeared to be geniuses. Therefore, trying to imitate success stories without distinguishing between repeatable actions that lead to success and the role of luck and risk is unwise. Two people can make the same decisions. One succeeds greatly, while the other fails completely. This is simply due to unpredictable or uncontrollable circumstances. Herein lies the importance of this idea. When learning from successful people, don't just look at what they did. Also, reflect on the circumstances that surrounded them. Often, we assume that if we copy what billionaires do, we'll get the same results. But author Housel warns against this mindset. You cannot separate their success from the hidden luck that played a pivotal role. What worked for them might not work for you. The circumstances that enabled their success might not be repeatable, and vice versa. The greater the success or failure, the more likely it is that luck and risk played a larger role than we imagine. Take Warren Buffett, for example, one of the most successful investors in history. Trying to replicate his journey seems tempting, but it's unrealistic. He is a rare case. He combines exceptional skill with special circumstances. Luck played a pivotal role in his journey. This cannot be copied or imitated. A more realistic and useful alternative is to study a wider range of experiences. When we look at widespread patterns of success, instead of just exceptional cases, we become capable of drawing more applicable lessons. We often ask, what are the secrets to successful investing? How do I get rich? What did successful people do so we can do it too? And we often believe that success and failure are direct reflections of intelligence, discipline, or solely making correct decisions. But we overlook a fundamental truth. Luck and risk play a significant role. Awareness of luck's role doesn't diminish the importance of effort. Instead, it gives us a greater ability to understand. It gives us more self-compassion when we stumble. It's the realization that failure doesn't necessarily mean we made a mistake. Just as success doesn't always mean we are geniuses. In the end, things are not always as they seem. What appears brilliant might hide a lot of randomness behind it. And what seems like a definite failure might just be a phase on the path to true success. Your relationship with money is a lifelong journey. Understanding them isn't just about financial gains. It's about gaining control, peace of mind, and ultimately living a richer, more intentional life.